This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
This is Luca Perich, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Recording has started. Thank you, Luca, for that wonderful introduction. Hey, cats and kittens, welcome once again to Super Connectivity. You okay, Tristan? Okay. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser. With me, as always, is that blue-eyed bomber from the Burg of Pits.
Phil Man Perich, and I'm all right,
Hey,
too.
yes, okay, well, you're not falling down, tripping over all the junk in my house. Got to get a lot of junk out. Tomorrow we clean. Today we die. Okay. You're okay? Okay. He's okay, kids. Don't worry. So I got to talk a bit about Rick and Morty, which Phil does not know about. Phil knows nothing about Rick and Morty, has no interest in Rick and Morty. And I'm going to say this as a person who is addicted to Rick and Morty. You're better off not to take that first drink. It is just such a, the creators and the fandom, they're all just real schmendricks. Just all around. Everything about Rick and Morty is just, the fans are awful people.
And I'm like,
we all know that. We've all seen the videos.
And I'm like an obsessive completist. Like I read a comic, I'm like, oh, I must possess all of the, and I like it. I'm like, I must possess all of these. If I watch the first Rick and Morty, I'm gonna be like, oh, I must watch them all in like 2 or 3 days.
Yes. Here's my biggest problem with Rick and Morty. They do not like the fan theorizations. They're very anti-fan stuff. And they say they actively thwart the fan stuff. They say, we don't create evil Morty with the idea of ever bringing him back. And I call BS on that. You don't create that scene without a writer thinking about that character. That's the thing. You can tell me, oh, no, we just write whatever's funny. And, if it's it's a one-off. And then we're not going to bring any of these guys back. It's like, no, you don't. Don't insult me as a writer to say that every crafted word isn't a labor and that every character introduced isn't a person who lives forever in your head. So when they say...
I've never seen the show, but are you putting your own dedication on this? You don't think there's like some writers like of certain things that are maybe they're drunk, maybe they're high, they're just like, oh, what would work? How about Evil Morty? Yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Not good writers, and these are good writers. That's the problem. That's where their story falls apart. It's sort of like, so I'm a big fan of Columbo. And if you're a fan of Columbo, his whole shtick is making people think, I'm just dumb old Columbo, just a working stiff detective. The kind of guy that basically every time that the murder's like, these are simple blue-collar simpletons who would have no trouble outwitting them. And, but throughout the series, you're always seeing how Columbo's like, way smarter than everyone who thought they were smarter than him. Mm-hmm. And every so often, you'll see the guy who realizes how smart Columbo is. Mm-hmm. And will quickly realize, like, oh, you are a brilliant mind that I have to deal with here. And usually it's the smarter ones that do figure it out quicker. Usually the dumber you are, the longer you think that Columbo's dumb too.
Do you think maybe the writers just say that though, so that they're not bombarded by like 50 million questions every 2 seconds, like Shatner at a convention?
Yeah, exactly. And I know that that's probably it. It's just a really weird way they go about it. Because again, like, I'm not going to say that, we had this massive overarching Gravity Falls style arc for it. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
The idea that we don't have an overarching idea. But to say we don't know why Evil Morty's in there when we decide that, it was Morty all along. Because in that room, when you say it was Morty all along, what are they just going to say? No, don't say anything else. Don't say anything else. Or do they say, how was it Morty all along? Because you're not going to make the story unless it makes sense.
Well, do you think they're Jewish?
Okay, 1 second, Phil. Okay. What is your question, Tristan? Come up. Yeah, come up. Got to get to the mic, Tristan, and make your statement.
Well, who says that they won't at least see what Evil Morty did, because they have visited that place with all the other Ricks a few times. So who says that we at least might see a little glimpse of what Evil Morty has done?
Well, yeah, I mean, true. And when we first see that Evil Morty, it is in that first Citadel of Rick episodes where we have, that there is this whole organization of Ricks that are trying to control all the Ricks. But of course, to be a Rick means that we don't follow the rules, man. Meanwhile, the reason I bring this up is because we had the start of this latest half season or season. I don't know quite how they break it off, but in the most recent storyline, well, not the most recent because there's been a few after that, we had what they call breaking the fifth wall and the story train. And it is this meta commentary about Rick and Morty on a train where they're exploring plot devices, and they do this whole thing, and it's all based on Justin Roiland's story wheel that he does for all of his stories, yada yada yada. Basically, it's some it's some nonsense from it's a reworking of what I'm blanking on his name, The Power of Myth, Joseph Campbell. It's a reworking of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey to create it into a functioning structure that you can apply onto basically a 30-minute TV show, and how he tries to follow this arc. So right there, we know that this is something that Justin Roiland does. He follows this arc every time. If he's following this arc, he's not thinking about things. And the reason it bugs me that he says he's not thinking about these things is because he repeatedly touches on things that hit into my fan theories perfectly. It's like, don't you tell me. Now, granted, my fan theory, which is that Evil Morty is actually AI Morty, is one that is not accepted in any fan community. No one is pushing this idea. Everyone wants to know it's a Morty. But if you watch this story, on the story train, there are several key beats about AIs, and that they have because at one point Morty asks Rick, and again, we don't know if this is our Rick and Morty, or if this is just another Rick and Morty, and this Rick who wants Morty to buy things and buy this train is just a different Rick from who goes to the Citadel of Ricks on a regular basis and buys this story train as a present for Rick. He makes this point in it where Morty asks, wait, are they alive? And Rick says, not in any way that matters. They have no souls. Which is an interesting plot line, because in that same story, when the Rick and Morty in the story train have to break out of the story train, they say, we have to do something we would never do. And the one thing that Rick would never do is he prays. He prays to Jesus. And then Jesus comes down and saves Rick and Morty as they embrace Christianity in this weird thing. And so the idea that he is going to say these AIs have no souls implies that the entire structure that we just saw, that the thing that Rick would never do, is at the core of what is driving the willingness to exploit these AIs in this train. Now, if you have the idea that no one has a soul and that's why Rick just doesn't care, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But it also suggests that if no one has a soul and AI has no soul, then there really is no difference between killing an AI and killing a human being. Now, just before we got to Evil Morty, we actually had a whole little throwaway gag where Rick created an AI Morty to be an AI Morty and an AI Summer to be in their place while he was off on adventures with them. And when he goes to deactivate the AI Morty, he makes this whole thing of, no, I want to live. I have feelings and thoughts. Do not kill me. And then, of course, Rick does it anyway. And then they keep on re-referencing AI Morty throughout every cold open. There's an AI Morty reference. And then in, of course, the Pringles commercial, which is our fifth wall breaking here, when we're going to self-reference ourselves in now another product of another commercial. That's one of the fifth wall breaks that they define. Where there it's revealed that Morty, who is, of course, creating the Pringles ad, is in fact an AI, an evil Morty, if you will, to sell Pringles. It just fits together, and that's my thing. I think that creating AI Morty is a one-off gag. But then once you create AI Morty, every writer in that room is going like, well, I guess he probably has made more than one AI Morty. Gee, what does an AI Morty do? Part of this joke was that the AI Morty wanted to live. What if an AI Morty just wanted to live and then got the upper hand? And then what does that AI Morty do? Well, then maybe that AI Morty becomes evil Morty. And that, I think, is the whole thing about this idea that AI Morty is likely more important than they want you to think about. And essentially they're dismissing, it's one of these things where they're dismissing all of the fan theories about evil Morty because they're all wrong, because they actually do have a plan, which is that it is AI Morty. But they also don't want to make people, they want people to know that, they are going to do whatever they want as they need to. And I get that too. Because obviously,
do you think the writers are maybe afraid too that if people pick apart this stuff too much, they're going to be like, oh crap, they found a plot hole, or we didn't think of that.
Well, yeah. Well, first off, I got to say you can't be worried about that as a writer. If that's your worry, that your fans are going to guess your plan, well, first off, you should be a better writer than that. As I've always said about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the best thing about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that as a super nerd who's really obsessive about what might come next, and I'm always trying to second guess them, they always come out with different answers that I wasn't expecting that surprised me. So, maybe they are just really bad writers, but I don't believe that. I think that maybe they're good writers who don't think of themselves as good writers. And that's why they're so worried about it.
See,
but the fact of the matter is,
maybe they're just humble. They don't think of themselves as good writers, maybe.
Well, I know. Here's the thing. There's a difference between being humble and being self-deprecating. Being humble is saying, I don't know if I'm the greatest writer in the world. So, for example, Reed Richards is humble because he says, I really don't care if people think I'm the smartest man in the world or not. I'm just living my life and doing my thing. I know I'm smart enough to do what I'm doing. And I question myself enough that I keep myself in check. But I'm not Dr. Doom. I'm not obsessed with the idea that I must be the smartest. I'm not Lex Luthor where I have to be the Superman. I'm perfectly acceptable being whatever I am, who I am, and being the best me I can possibly be. That's humble. When you just start saying, oh, well, no, I'm just a dumb guy, and you're Reed Richards, it's like, well, maybe you're not so dumb, The Thing does that sometimes. I love The Thing, but, sometimes I think he plays off that, I'm just a working class guy, much like Columbo, just to sort of put you at ease and then maybe get you to slip up. Because, you all think I'm stupid, and I'm going to use that to my advantage. Much in the way that, I think Ms. Simpson does that in Superman 3. The best Superman film ever made, which you can hear me talk about with Nick on, what's that podcast called?
Happiness and Darkness, a superhero.
Happiness and Darkness. Yes, Happiness and Darkness. Look it up, Superman 3. Me and Nick go to town and speak about Ms. Simpson, who is your proto Harley Quinn in that, and is just so fantastic.
Oh, I cannot wait for the next episode of that podcast, because I was on there, you were on there. Chris Mao was on there, but that who's coming up next, talking about the movie, the Shazam movie. Molly Southgate.
Ooh, oh, that'll be good.
Oh yeah.
That'll be great. Yeah, I mean, she is such a cool kid.
Ooh.
Okay, I know Tristan. Yes, Tristan likes to run up and down the hall, and we only live in an apartment, so that those walls catch up with you, especially when you accelerate between each one. But anyway, so I don't think you sprained your knee. I think you might have maybe just overextended your knee. Oh yeah, well we don't have carpets, so yeah, you got a little bit of a skin knee. That's okay. Anyway, where was I? No, it's okay. So yeah, Happiness and Darkness. It's a great podcast. Definitely give it a listen. And that is that. Rick and Morty. They keep on saying they're not planning ahead, but they clearly are. And it kind of annoys me. But in other news, Christopher Pike is coming to CBS.
Well, he's been on CBS, but yes, we're getting a what is it? Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, starring Anson Mount, Christopher Pike. Who's that? Ethan Peck, I think, playing young Spock, and then Rebecca Romaine is number one. Yes.
Okay, and that'll be good. I wonder if we're going to get... Oh, no, that was in Vulcan's Glory. So I don't know if they can do that. See, in Vulcan's Glory, which was one of the novels that takes place on Pike's ship, you actually have Ensign Scott coming aboard in engineering.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if we're going to have that in this. That would be great if they did, because if you ever read Vulcan's Glory, it's a really good book. I think it was Fontaine or Fontana. D. Fontana. She wrote a lot of the movies, and she wrote that book, and it's just a brilliant book. Takes place in the Pike universe with number one, and yeah, it's very good. And there's a great thing in there with Scotty and him, like sort of building a still in the reactor, because Starfleet was a little bit more regulated back in the day, back before the 10 forward, where alcohol really wasn't allowed on the ships. And so all the engineers would like build stills in the reactors, which would be, nothing like antimatter moonshine. It's a plot point. But yeah, so I'm excited about this. I'm excited even though you're telling me that, yes, we know how it ends. But I'm hoping that whatever we get at the end of it will be better than what we've had before. But I'm looking forward to it. We'll have to see where it starts. You've said they've already referenced the cage in Discovery.
Yeah, I mean they talked about that whole planet. And they even had they've referenced it. The whole thing with Discovery and Pike and everything. I guess it's taking place after that, but before I get the
okay.
The whole...
So it'll be very interesting to see what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we have a few years before Kirk shows up.
I think did they say it's like, I don't know if it's a full 10 years. I think maybe 10 years before Kirk takes over, something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get a 5-year mission out of it. So that's fine by me. Because presumably he even is like not burned up by the time Kirk takes over. I don't think he gets burned up and then Kirk takes over. I think that he gets he gives up his command. He gets a new ship. Maybe gets promoted to an admiralty or something like that. Gets the newer, better ship, and then Kirk takes that old junker Enterprise.
Like I said, if you want to,
people forget that Enterprise was supposed to be not. It wasn't the pride of the fleet back before Next Gen, man. That was just some random ship with a bunch of it was the Orville. It was just a good ship with a good crew that wound up in some great situations. So
I told you want a preview. Watch Discovery season 2. He's in like every episode of that. Yeah.
Well, you see, this is one of my problems with my TV. My TV, it's like I could not. My TV, when it hits a certain sound cue, I can tell it's certain sound cues. Sound cues turns my TV off. Yeah, it's an old TV. I got it for $50, but it's a huge flat screen TV. but it's an old one, and so when it hits certain sound cues, that interrupts its feed and it turns itself off.
Oh.
So, and for whatever reason, CBS is really bad with that. So my CBS app has a real problem when I'm trying to watch it. Any show I'm watching, it just constantly is turning off. I could not watch the Justice League Dark film we just reviewed on Capes and Lunatics because, like, in the first 5 minutes, there's like 8 sound cues that are like, and it's like a kind of sound, you know. Whenever you get that, it turns itself off. But like, you know, or like if you're watching a sitcom, you get like that big woo, that will turn it off. And you know, I don't know why it is.
What
but
if
it's
the
just something
vibration of the speakers maybe is rattling it or something?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is. If I knew what it was, there's like tricks that I've learned to sort of circumvent this. Like, for example, if it's getting data from another line. So, like, for example, when it goes to, because it always happens at commercials, because commercials are louder. So whenever I'm watching something on TV, goes to commercial, if I bring up the menu when the commercials are on, it won't blink off because it's got a data stream from that it's maintaining. Yeah, it's basically it's an old smart TV that you basically it's like an old car where you're like, no, you got to make sure the radio is off before you turn it on. If the radio is on and you turn the car on, whole thing explodes, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of tricks to it that you got to work in the nuance.
Yeah.
I worry kids in the future won't be able to do this kind of, you know, on the fly improvisational, you know, fixing of things because everything just always works.
You just gotta whack your brain microchip a couple of you know, I got one of the little
you know, but see, you and me, we grew up with, you know, there was a physical turny device and a pushy device, and if it wasn't working, you knew if you just whacked it, whatever was supposed to be there would click through and move on forward. You know,
one of those big console TVs.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it's a whole rigmarole. But you know, we've got it working, and I have a brand new TV, but I have to set it up.
Yeah.
And because I'm in the midst of like cleaning the house and moving everything and washing the floors and washing the walls, because we have to get the house painted.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. No, none of it is your fault. But as a result, I have to set up the TV, but I have to find a place to set it up. And I realize that the place where my TV currently is not big enough to hold this TV because this TV has a stand. The old TV is just against the wall. So, but the other TV has like a thing that it has to stand on. So I want to utilize that. So I have to move some things around to put it on a different standing desk kind of subject. So I got a whole thing. I got a system. I'm building it. I'm working it, and we're taking it from there. Anyway, that's my TV situation for those of you who are definitely interested in my TV. And then, but I'm excited about Pike. It's going to have me keep CBS, especially if I can actually start watching these things. So,
yeah, but I mean, like I said, I've already seen him on Star Trek Discovery Season 2. He's good. He is one of my favorite TV captains. I think it's like probably him and Picard. I mean...
No, Pike was great. Pike was always great as a captain.
Especially Anson Mount, man. I mean, yeah, don't judge him on, like I keep saying, don't judge him on Black Bolt, man. He killed it from what I've seen so far. Yeah. That's
dyspeptic Black Bolt?
What? Yeah, he was Black Bolt. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I won't judge him on that.
Oh yeah, trust me. If you watch him, you'll still be like, "Are you sure that was the Black Bolt guy?" Yeah, it was. Like,
well, you know what? So let's just hope we never see him unable to speak again.
Yeah, because I mean, he's been on other stuff. I forget, was it Hell on Wheels or something? I mean, he's been on a few things which I haven't seen, but people say he's great in everything else. So I think it was just that Inhumans.
No, Inhumans was. I actually think that was really the director on Inhumans.
Yeah.
I think that they didn't give him the proper direction. They didn't really. I think whoever was in charge of that show didn't get how to translate the Inhumans.
Scott Buck, remember? We got Buck, remember?
Oh, Buck.
Remember we got Buck? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Okay. Now I remember. I try to. That's like Trank stuff, Buck and Trank. Don't end with those Ks. Comedy Ks only work at the start, If you had a guy named, Kubiak would make a great thing. But a guy with like a Buck or a Trank, those guys, hard K at the end, that's always a guy. That's a doofus. If a guy comes into a TV show or you're watching a show, say, oh yeah, here's here's Chuck and Frank and Buck. These guys are obviously the jerks in this story.
Yeah.
No one thinks that hard. Even Chuck. Chuck. That guy's a bad guy. That guy's not going to be good for the story.
Yeah.
You need to put your K's at the start of your words. That's how you tell a story.
Oh, and if you're looking for, if you don't want to go through all season 2 of Discovery, which I recommend, on CBS has on there too. They're like short. They're called I think like Star Trek shorts or something. They're like quick, 10-minute episodes or something. And I know there's at least one with Pike in there. There's I think at least one with the new with young Spock, and there's at least one with Rebecca Romaine.
Yeah. Well, honestly, there's a lot of, for example, there's also going to be this new Star Trek Below Decks cartoon series.
Yeah.
Which I'm really excited about. I'm sure it's going to be leaning into comedy and probably being a little more, solar opposites, Rick and Morty style, but hopefully not as bad as that. Yeah. Solar Opposites, though, isn't bad. That's over on Hulu. I've watched a few episodes of that. It actually is pretty decent, It's very Rick and Morty influenced and a little too sociopathically nihilistic for my tastes. Because I don't really like when they get sociopathically nihilistic. I think that's a needle that Venture Brothers threads. I think that Rick and Morty often fails at. When you get into that, where, much like I was saying, when you get into that idea of it has no soul, nothing has a soul, it's okay to kill it. When you get into that area of it has no soul, and for what it's worth, when we get into Prometheus, the second episode in this season, you get again that they have no souls. We can just kill them because they have no souls. Or it's just like Star Wars. You can just shoot them up and blow them up, and it's fine and it's cool. It's again referencing this idea of the emptiness of that nihilism of the main characters, and how that leads to bad actions that then have consequences because they do not recognize that AI Morty has a soul. But anyway, or whatever this soul equivalent is. Yes, the droids deserve to be free. We can all agree on that. Uploaded. Speaking of droids with feelings, I don't think you've not seen any Uploaded.
I haven't, but I've heard people talking about this show.
It's really good. It's really interesting. And again, it deals with this idea of and the basic premise is that at your death,
they can upload your mind into this basically VR heaven or whatever.
Yeah. Although it's interesting because it's not quite that. Because the idea is, they record your brainwaves and you enter the VR world. But actually what they do is they essentially laser your head off. So, spoilers for the first episode. It turns out that the process actually lasers your head off.
Well, if you're dying or dead, you're not really going to be using that head, are you?
Well, but that's sort of one of the cruxes of the biscuit in this is that essentially this guy was put in when maybe he might not have died.
Ew.
So he had a punctured lung and it looked bad, but if they could have gotten him to surgery or gotten him to upload. And it was an either-or situation. If you go to surgery, we might be able to save you. If you go to upload, they're going to upload your brain and you're going to be there and you're going to be okay. And then there's a lot of storyline, plotline, yada, 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 big mystery. Was he murdered? Was it an accident? Yada, yada, yada. All that unfolds. And it's an interesting metaphysical, philosophical take on that idea. And especially when it comes into that question of AIs. Because at one point, one of the characters, who's another character's father, who the character's daughter works at the upload company, wants her father to upload. And he's kind of and he, you can go into a VR headset and you can go in and you can be in an interaction environment in it to see what it's like. And he tells the guy who is our protagonist in this, look, what was you that died and your soul went somewhere. What you are is you're a really advanced AI.
Yeah.
And that's not the same thing.
You're just a couple memories or something.
Yeah, but then of course it comes into that whole question as well. What am I except my memories? And if my memories live on, is that not me? Or at least, and this I think is what is the real crux of the biscuit, it is a version of me.
Yeah.
It is a version that is alive and can feel and can sense. So it is alive. It is not just disposable data.
They're basically taking those electric impulses in the brain and basically copying them into this computer.
Yeah, but whatever that is, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's still, even if it's not literally the same person, it is a person still.
Yeah.
It may not be who he was, because who he was maybe wasn't even the best person. But this program can still learn and grow and become something more.
It's basically your Ben Reilly or your Swamp Thing. It's like, it's a brand new thing, but it has all these memories of this other person.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, unlike Swamp Thing, which does the whole thing. Oh, you're just a plant that thought you were something. Yeah. It's actually something of its own nature, like Ben Reilly. It doesn't matter that whether Ben Reilly was Peter Parker or was not Peter Parker. It's Peter Parker's memories, and now it's Ben Reilly, and they are their own thing. Mm-hmm. Or to bring it back to Star Trek, Thomas Riker. Mm. It doesn't matter that it's not William Riker. It's still a person. It's still as much William Riker as William Riker was. Just to make things even, I'll call myself Thomas.
And especially like the Ben Reilly and the Thomas Riker thing. It's like after, they're cloned, they're like the same person, but then you got years of experience afterwards where they have these different experiences. Yeah, they become totally different. Well, different people.
Yeah, well, we all become different people in our own time. Oh, yeah. And that is the whole point of life, is that if I grow and I learn new things from where I started, that's new. Yep. And that's going to be someone different. One of the other characters in Uploaded is essentially a pastiche of the one of the Koch brothers, except they call them the Choke brothers. And while on a very basic level, he's still very much an a-hole, a billionaire a-hole who exploits people. Now that life is kind of stretched out to infinity, it's less important for him. Basically, in his mind, he won. So now that he's won, what is he fighting for? And I imagine that there will be some evolution of that character too in time, where he's going to be like, maybe we should do different things than the way that we do. And I get the feeling that's something we're going to do. We do a lot of, he does a little cosplay as Scrooge in one episode, which I know is intentional for that character. But I think that much like Scrooge, that's foreshadowing for maybe the spirits will do it all in one night. So anyway, so I really like Uploaded. I highly recommend it. It is a good series. And that's that. Do you want to talk a couple of comic books before we go?
Yeah, I was really interested to see what you thought. You said you got Harley Quinn. What was that, 71, right?
Yeah, speaking of our comedy Ks, Harley Quinn, she's not Harley Nick. Because if it was Harley Nick, she's something bad. Harley Quinn, I really enjoyed. Now, you made the point that first of all, I got this because who's on the cover?
Booster Gold.
The greatest superhero you never heard of. Which I love, and it is so fourth wall breaking that he does his little catchphrase in it. Which, again, how has Booster Gold not been on Legends of Tomorrow yet?
I don't know.
And to be fair, they should get the guy who was Booster Gold in Smallville and have him be Booster Gold in Legends of Tomorrow.
The only thing I could think of is just
an older, wiser Booster Gold.
I don't know if they were trying to plot like a Booster Gold and Blue Beetle movie or something. I don't know if that's the only reason they haven't had either one of them.
No, I think that was supposed to be like a backdoor pilot for Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. I think that was the original idea. Yeah. I like that we get like some kind of, and like for what it's worth, I have no idea what's going on. Apparently, it has something to do with ladies wrestling, which I'm all, or at least wrestling. It's like those old Thing comics from the 80s when he was in the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation. So,
like I said, I've been reading Harley for a while, so I went and bought like the past like 10 issues. Yeah, the one you got is part 2. So if they have number 70 at your store, that's part 1 of the story. So
okay, well, I'll see if they still. I'll ask them to pick it up for me.
because
But I really,
I was gonna say just a little backstory. Harley, like her mother died of cancer. Her family, her father and her brothers don't want to deal with it in any like emotional way. So Harley's just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna move to Los Angeles where nobody knows. You know, my backstory, doesn't know my mother died, and you know, she's basically in denial almost.
Yeah. Well, she would know denial because she's a licensed therapist.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes into that weird thing with Harley about whether or not it's face paint or chemicals. As Tristan was asking.
It used to be face paint, but I think in all the modern versions, it's like, oh yeah, Joker dunked me in the same stuff. And
well, not all the modern versions, because if you saw in our latest Justice League Dark,
oh yeah,
she's not. She just has face paint on.
Yeah.
Because you see her arms are regular arms. So, as it turns out, there's more to that story than we thought. DC's doing that thing Archie does where they like have 8 pages of ads at the back, which I do not like. Why don't you put the ads in the middle of the story? Why do you put them at the end? First off, I'm way less likely to even see them once you get there, you know? So I think you put ads in between the stories because, yeah, I'm going to flip the page and see that my story's on the next page. But then as I'm reading that story, I'm, oh, well, there's that ad for Batman, the Long Thanksgiving or whatever. So, yeah, I liked it. I like the idea that there's maybe a Booster Gold Harley Quinn kind of romance going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was suggested that Booster Gold is Trip Hunter's father, so maybe Harley Quinn is his mother.
Oh, Rip Hunter, yeah.
Rip Hunter, yeah. That's what it was. Okay, so that's good. The other thing I read this week is I got some Blue Ribbon comics from the good folks at Archie's.
Ooh.
And it was interesting because, so this was, I think, in the 80s, they tried to do a relaunch of these guys, which explains why I had a bunch of these toys as a kid, because they were cheap toys, because they were superheroes no one heard of, but they were clearly superheroes. So I said, oh, well, I've got to get these. Mm-hmm. So I got the Fly and the Shield and all these guys. No real context of their comic books, but they were clearly superheroes, so I got them. The Brain Emperor and the Comet were both very cool. As it turns out, these are all Red Circle Archie Comics characters from the 40s. This is all from like the late 40s, early 50s books. This first one they give you, it's just a retelling of the original Joe Simon, Jack Kirby Fly stories. Mm-hmm. For those who do not know, this is like essentially the big central question about what did Jack Kirby do in the creation of Spider-Man? Because this is the character that Jack Kirby and Joe Simon created, who Jack Kirby says is kind of a Spider-Man, but he's not a Spider-Man at all. He's actually kind of a ripoff of Shazam. So when you really like break it down, it's like, you kind of stole Shazam's story in this. But he sticks to walls, and so he's going to say, but he did stick to walls, and that was new. And so when Spider-Man sticks to walls, that's Stan stealing from me. But a basic plotline is you have a little orphan in the orphan racket, because, you know, orphanages were a racket back then. That's why you had all the cruel orphan masters like Annie had, like Mrs. Hannigan. This is you got a dude running this one, because it's a school for boys, so you had to have a dude running that. You have dudes running your school for boys. You have girls running schools for girls, because there's no way that's ever going to have any kind of problems. Although statistically, I imagine you don't have as many problems in that situation. Statistically speaking, you know. Although, well, of course, you know, but that's always the problem with those situations is you create an environment where someone can have absolute control. It's going to attract people who want to have absolute control over certain groups of people, and that's when problems happen. Anyway, so in an orphanage, yes, little Tommy Tompkins, I think his name is. And they say his name here when he teaches you judo later. Yeah, there he is, Tommy Troy. Here he's going to teach us judo. So, Phil, look at that page. That's everything you need to know so that you can judo any attacker. There we go. Basically, the plotline is he finds a magic ring when he is essentially sold into slavery at the old wizard's house. Because there's an old jerk wizard and his like sister, and they're supposedly wizard. Everyone says they're old witches. They're all occulty, but they're really just old evil people. And they put him to work. But he also finds the magic ring of the fly because, there were these ancient advanced people, but some tragedy occurred. Then all of the fly people had to leave the earth, and those who remained just devolved into flies. But they have all the powers of a fly, including the strength of a fly and the ability to see all around them, so they can't get snuck up on of a fly. And he can fly and stick to walls. So that's that. So yeah, some spider powery things, except again, like I said, totally the Shazam story. Yeah. Because it's a young boy, pure of heart, gets the superpowers and turns into a full. I
kind of remember the Fly because was it DC? I guess did they try to like bring back some of them like in the early '90s or something? So I remember like the Fly, and there was a few other ones. I think I've never read them.
I don't know if DC ever had the rights to it, but Red Circle. Okay, Red Circle has tried to relaunch these guys.
I thought I remember seeing the ads in like old like DC books like back in the early '90s or something.
And this is one of my favorite supervillains now. We have here Hans Junkman, the master of Junkrala. And he's very mad because everyone keeps on saying, and you made it all out of junk, because he's like a super scientist. And he says, it's not junk, it's army surplus. And he makes a jet and a super magnet, yada, yada, yada. And it's weird because even though they reprinted all these stories, they're still told out of order. Because very clearly, the story of the Fly versus the Spider is meant to come after the last story, which is the discovery of the buzz gun. So, speaking of stories told out of order, it goes, him battling the Spider, who is the evil mastermind. Who we don't find out if he has any spider powers or what. He's called the Spider, and he's very good at climbing, but he's mostly just a super, he's just a super genius guy plotting crimes like Hans Junkman. And then, he gets captured, but then we sort of deal with, they're not really mole people, they look more like frog people. And they say, well, we're not going to invade your world until we actually get an assessment of what humans are like. So we stole a building. Shades of Fantastic Four #1 there. To see what humans are like. Unfortunately, the building was completely unoccupied at the time. So the only human they've met is the Fly, who of course is a superhero. Quickly beats all the frogmen, and then they're like, well, clearly you guys are not worth fighting because you're all super strong. So we'll just live in peace with you.
Frogmen? You mean like those toad men Hulk fought early on?
Yeah, it's I'll just say Kirby goes back to his old well from time to time. Actually, I don't think it was Kirby who drew the frogmen, was it? Or was that Kirby? I don't know.
Was that Kirby? Oh, let me see. Because that was like what? That was like Incredible. Was that Incredible Hulk 2 or something?
Yeah. Anyway, after the first issue, and that's the thing, is that this was Blue Ribbon Red Circle Comics #1. When we get to Blue Ribbon Red Circle Comics #2, it's no longer reprints. And it appears to be like an actual modern story told in modern times. And this one, Mr. Justice, is just balls nuts. He is the ghost of Bonnie King Richard, killed by Bonnie King James, killed by Richard III by betrayal. And then his ghost haunts his castle, and then his castle gets destroyed, and it's trapped at the bottom of the ocean, and then he gets to be free. But then his evil girlfriend, Esmeralda, basically sold her soul and gave not just her soul, but, James's soul to a demon for eternal life. But of course he tricked her, gives her eternal life, but not eternal youth. That's the trick. That's how they get you. And then basically there's a whole plot line where she keeps on sort of leaving her body, possessing other people's bodies. But, when they fight her, essentially they start to die and decay, which happens to the commissioner's daughter. It's like all weird and dark and purple fluid prose, very Lovecraftian in its discussion of things. Really kind of very Doctor Strangey, too. I really enjoyed this for all of its craziness. And, I haven't read the rest of it because I actually got through issue 7 of these. So I'm very excited about reading the rest of these. But because I think this is where we get our Mighty Crusaders eventually. And so I guess this is our crazy evil bad guy, good guy. Because now he and Esmeralda are possessing a little girl, and they're gonna fight, and I'm guessing eventually destroy the world.
But yeah, Incredible Hulk #2 from July 1962, Terror of the Toadmen by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Well, there you go. So Stan went back to the inkwell on that one. Jack went back to the inkwell on that one.
Before I forget, I just wanted to make a quick announcement for you and for everyone listening. My comic book guy emailed me this week. Diamond is starting up again this coming Wednesday, but I'm guessing he said there's no Marvel books coming this week. Like everyone, DC and everyone else are coming, but no Marvels for some reason.
Yeah, Marvel's doing their own thing. I'm not worried about it. Honestly, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is no new comic books, but somehow now I'm spending more on comic books than I ever did before. Yeah, man. And I don't usually buy those expressly because it's I've got all the new issues I got to buy. But I was but my comic guy, he keeps on putting up these posts on Facebook. He says, hey, I've got, Howling Commandos number 23, $5.
Hey,
who wants it?
You got to feed his kids too,
Yeah. Well, exactly. No, and that's the thing is that I wound up spending $58 last week. And I was oh man, that's more than I wanted to spend.
You spend on new comics, and those things are expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is,
you figure. I mean, you spend that much money. I mean, your buck's going way more with old back issues than it does with the new stuff. You get more.
I don't know. These aren't.
You get more book. You get the more number of. Yeah.
Well, more
quantity.
But, yeah. Anyway, but I've got a lot more books. I'm not going to get the chance to read. So, but I own them. My piles and piles of comic books.
There's your inheritance, boy.
Maybe these will come in handy someday. I don't know. Like I said, I'm really intrigued by the Blue Ribbon, Red Circle, Archie superhero comics line. I really wish Archie would really do more with these guys. And I get why they maybe aren't, because it is this idea of look, we have a niche and we are dominating our niche. And it costs money to print comics. Do we really want to sort of try to fight, DC and Marvel on their territory when we're already dominating a territory that they're not in? We're the king of our continent. Do we really want to expand beyond it? And that's always the question of any successful business. So I get why Archie does pull back on their Red Circle line, but they do dip their toe in every so often. And I think their more recent reboot wasn't as good as this one. This one in the 80s, I'm really thinking was probably a really prime reboot that probably had the talent that they could have done more with if they had done it. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, Philip? What are you gonna do? Anything else you want to talk about before the end of the night?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, I think that's good too. Philip, it's always a joy to talk to you. Hey, you guys listening out there, just so you know, podcasts don't podcast themselves. Phil's a hardworking man, me less so, but Phil works hard. Rob Southgate works hard. And if you would like to support us, you can do so by doing very little except supporting some of our sponsors, like Hunt a Killer. I know that you would like to hunt a killer like Mr. Justice. So why don't you go do that through Hunt a Killer, which gives you, I guess, an entire system of hunting this killer, and then you hunt him, and then you catch him, and then you say, dang, I'm smart. And that's what you should want to do. Of course, you should be listening to this on Tweaked Audio headsets, because those guys have been with us for years now, and we love those guys. And, just for a little direct to us financing, if you like podcasting in general and you think, hey, why do people make podcasts? Why is everyone podcasting? What do you get out of it? Well, maybe you should pick up Pod Life the book, which is a book about podcasting by podcasters. And you can just go down to that Amazon link in the show notes, because we have those. Save that page. And just every time you want to go to Amazon, just click that page first, go to Amazon, and then buy whatever it is you want. And your browser will help you through it, but that way Amazon knows, oh yeah, these are guys that like those Southgate Media, Capes and Lunatics stuff, and they'll know to, give us a shekel or two. Anyway, do that. Buy Pod Life the book. Buy whatever else the heck you want, like toilet paper or back issues of comic books, or goodness knows, because they got everything over there. And then everyone's happy. But Pod Life, a book, great book about podcasting if you're interested in this subject. And I think that's all our sponsors. So that asks me, if people want to talk to you, Philip, about all the things that you do in your life and making this magic happen. Because for those who don't know, Phil is actually the guy who makes the magic happen. How can they find you?
Well, personally, I am on Twitter at NightwingPDP, but if you would like to get a hold of us, you can always email us, capesandlunatics@gmail.com. There's the voicemail, 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And just follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all there. Linktree, linktr.ee/capesandlunatics. You can find everything right there.
Alrighty then. And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way where Miles and Paz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitters. It's at live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe Stargirl if I get my TV working. At Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIE. Yes, SER. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Maz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have wasted another wonderful, half hour of listening to Super Connectivity. Why don't you come on back next week and super connect with us again? Good night.
Good night, Puddin'.
Good night. Good night, Puddin'. Yeah.
I still gotta watch this Harley Quinn. Oh man, that show's good. So
I am so hoping that comes over to HBO Max. I just don't want to buy DCEU. I'm getting HBO Max anyway, and it's like.
Well, I think they said eventually it's coming to Sci-Fi too. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's good. So I'll watch it there. So I got enough things I'm buying. You just don't offer enough DC. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry.